Hello, good morning or good afternoon, depending on where you are joining us from in the world today. My name is Francis Fisher. I'm the head of group marketing for Weidmann. And I'd like to welcome you all this morning or this afternoon or evening to our medical technology webinar. Today we will be talking about exploring needle and cannula insert molding, specifically focused on high volume applications and the reasons behind that, some of the benefits. And I have my two colleagues with me. I have Jay Slenker from the US part of Weidmann Medical Technology based in North America, who will present today with his colleague Patrick Bear from Rapperswil, Switzerland at our European headquarters. If you have any questions to the content as we move through, what you will see is in the top right corner, a small question mark button. Don't worry, it won't interrupt the presenters. I will get that and I will hopefully be able to summarize those to our speakers at the end when we have a Q&A session and get you all the answers you need. And if not, of course, we can follow up with you. So with that said, I would like to kick things off this morning, handing over to Jay. I hope you enjoy the content we've prepared for you today, and I look forward to seeing you at the end of the webinar. Thanks very much, and Jay, good morning, over to you.
All right, thank you, Francis. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us this morning to participate in this webinar. So the agenda today will be a brief introduction to Weidmann Medical. We're going to go over some insert molding versus bonding methods, a couple of case studies, a summary, and then a Q&A session afterwards. So a little bit about Weidmann technology. Weidmann is part of the Weidmann Medical is part of the Weidmann group. We have a couple other divisions. One is electrical. When I say electrical, think of insulation for industrial transformers. And the other one is fiber technology. So think of cellulose materials that we provide to different industries and also universities. So back to Weidmann Medical. We are a global contract manufacturer. We have sites in Europe, Switzerland, and also North America. We focus on, I would say, drug delivery, diagnostics, and medical devices. Highly precision injection molding applications with automation on the back end. We also help our customers up front with DFM and design and scalability. So today we're going to discuss insert molding versus bonding methods first, and then we're going to go into the high volume stuff with Patrick. So some of the, I would say, challenges and key points with medical device bonding is adhesive inconsistency causes leaks, contamination, weak points. It's especially critical in IV applications as well as blood contact applications. Molded bonds are more stable with overmolding and reduced risk of failure. Process variation and efficiency, manual gluing introduces variability, it limits scalability. With overmolding, it eliminates steps, supports quality, even with small complex parts like safety needles, cannulas, and syringe applications. Biocompatibility and cleanliness. Glues can leave residues, interfere with sterilization. We know that overmolded parts simply sterilization, improve long-term compatibility, and reduce risk contamination. Scalability and throughput. Manual processes slow down production and are hard to scale. Overmolding allows for faster cycles and high volume output with fewer operators. Investments versus life cycle costs. Though molding systems require a high investment up front and trained staff, they pay off and reduce work, lower labor costs, better long-term performance, this is especially important in dialysis, blood sampling, and IVD type products. So here we have a comparison table comparing the two, overmolding versus gluing. The first one is bond strength. Obviously, it's very high with overmolding. It's mechanically integrated. It's very consistent. It's repeatable. Where gluing, it depends on the adhesive, the consistency of the glue, the preparation, and so on. Human error risk, it's very low with automated processes like injection molding and the automation that supports that. it's very high with gluing because of the multiple steps that are involved in the variability. Cycle time is obviously very fast in overmolding, injection molding. The bond occurs in the mold. We have an application Patrick's going to talk about. It's sub 10 seconds in cycle time, and it's a two-shot application as well. In gluing, it's slow. Multiple steps, curing times vary. So for high volume, it's definitely a better opportunity to go with overmolding. And the labor requirements as well. It's mostly machine driven with overmolding, with bonding, with adhesive bonding. There's an operator dependency there. And there's multiple operators, multiple shifts. Over time, it increases cost. Scalability, overmolding is excellent. It's suited for high volumes, medium to high volumes, I would say. With bonding, adhesive bonding, it's basic. With adhesive bonding, it's limited. Manual work restricts scaling for sure. There's multiple steps there, multiple people involved. Initial investment, it's high with overmolding, insert molding. Obviously, with the molding machine, the automation, and then you have the support as well with automation engineers, automation technicians, process technicians. And with gluing, it's very low. It's basic equipment, and you're just really paying for the adhesives as well and the adhesive equipment, dispensing equipment. Maintenance complexity, overmolding in high volume, there's automation involved. Like I said before, there's multiple personnel involved that are skilled on the automation and molding side. And again, on the gluing side, it's minimal, basically a couple people setting up the equipment, which is very basic and manual. Best fit for, so with overmolding, it's medium to high volume, tight tolerance, critical, precision parts, high risk parts, I would say as well. With gluing, it's simpler, low risk or low volume applications. A couple examples here of photos of things we've done or are looking to do with overmolding. We've transitioned from gluing and adhesive to some of these products to high volume overmolding, mainly cannulas and needles. Most of these are cannulas with the exception of the one on the right, which is an overmolded trocar needle. And then other markets we see, definitely interventional devices where guide wires, trocars, torque cables, hypotubes, they're all involved with overmolding. And we see a lot of opportunity here as well going forward, even overmolding onto polymer tubes, micro extrusion tubes and stuff like that. So we have a couple case studies. The first one is a lancet. And this lancet is for a diabetes care product. It is actually a blood testing device, self-administered. It's pain-free for the most part. So we have 6 lancets that are assembled into a sleeve and drum, and they go into this device. After each blood test, the drum is rotated 45 degrees to go on to the next needle set. There's a TPE and a polymer aspect to this. This is a 2-shot application. So after 6 rotations, the whole drum has to be replaced and a new one is set in there. It's a really interesting product on the market. And I'm going to hand it over to Patrick. He's going to talk about the details of this and how we scaled it.
Thank you very much, Jay. So quick, let me introduce myself. My name is Patrick Baer. I'm working in the headquarters in Rapperswil in Switzerland, and I'm joining Weidmann Medical Technology now for 4.5 years, and I'm responsible for automation procurement. So let me take you a little bit deeper into the production side of these lancet. What you see here, the picture on the right side, is the size of this lancet with 21 millimeters or 0.827 inches length. And it's out of the material, the needle, the stainless steel with a diameter of 0.3 millimeters. We had then add a hard component ABS with 0.026 grams. And to protect the sharp tip end, we have a soft material TPE with only 0.007 gram. So these we produce on a vertical injection molding machine with 75 tons. Therefore, we have a mold with 64 cavities, 2 component for shot, 1 injection side and 3 ejection side. We will see later in the layout. Cycle time, we produce these 64 parts in 7 seconds in a clean room ISO 8 environment. And the annual volume of one of his line is 200 million, like we see here the parts. So let me take you a little bit deeper into the layout of the production. On the next slide, we see the setup of a line, starting on the left side by feeding the needle. We have then in the middle part the rotary table for the injection mold, and on the right side the following steps. We're going through now a little bit deeper in detail. On the next slide, we see a little bit more precise how we prepare the parts. So the first photo on the left on the top, there we have the needles prepared with sliders. We have 4 rows and 60 parts each row to prepare the parts, get them with the gripper and move them into the tool. So on the left bottom picture is the gripper on it, and on the middle picture we have the view of the mold ready to insert the parts. So this is a little bit theoretically. I would say we go to the next slide and show you a video how this works. So here you can see we have the setup with the magazines. We prepare these needles, 16 each row. You can't see it good, but with the gripper we go over it. We have then an alignment from the side for pre-positioning. Take the parts with vacuum with the gripper and move over to the right side to the mold. What we also have here, we can see it a little bit, the yellow things on the gripper. We have camera system to check that the needle is in the right orientation, that we have the sharp end where we need it. And if this is not the case, don't worry, on the left side, the needles you see there, this is when a part is wrong orientated, we just spill it out on the side, that we don't get a wrong part into our process. On the next video, now we show you how to insert the part into the mold. So this is the mold section with the 3 ejection sites on the turntable. From the left side, we bring the needle on top of the mold and align it precisely into the mold. You can slightly see the red light moving over the mold before inserting. This is to check that nothing is left inside the cavities, that everything is empty and ready to insert the new needles. And also again, when moving away from the mold, we have then the check that the needle is in the correct position inside the mold before we go into the 2K injection process. Behind you can see the top of the mold where we injected the 2 components. So let's move on to the next section. On the next page we see the layout from the ejection side. There we have a similar gripper system to remove the parts. On the bottom left, you see the mold when it's filled with the parts and the sprue. So we also need to remove the sprues out of the mold and transfer it to a sliding table on the right side. You can see these in the picture in the middle. We have then in the part in between where we can put the sprues away in a funnel to collect them for hard and soft component. Also here it's a little bit dry. Let's move to the next page where we see a video of this section. So this is the mold where we're picking up parts and needles, glancets finished with the sprues, and moving over here to the sliding table. Start again, catching all the parts and sprue, moving over and set them into the sliding table for the next steps. Next slide, please. So here we see a little bit better the sliding table. When this table moves from the left to the right position, it always goes through a camera system check to prove that our parts and lancets are produced correctly in the right dimension and everything worked in the injection molding process. And for the further steps on the next slide, we see the layout of the last part of this section. So if the camera check was not successful and we have a failure in the part, we then have the possibility here on a separated station, when we pick it up again with the gripper system, that we can release each needle if needed. So on the left side, we marked here one needle is missing in the gripper system because of a failure detection from the camera system. And we have in the middle the picture with the cylinder system with the 64 cylinders for each part to release. If everything is successful, we can move to the right, to the last position of this gripper, to insert the needles into a magazine. In such magazine, we have a storage of 1,344 lancets each magazine. On the next page, then we have another layout showing us the last part of this line. There we have trolleys we can bring to this station to automatically change the magazines into the process. So there we have the capacity of 80,000 lancets in a storage of a trolley with these magazines, and they also bring automatically to the place to fill and bring it back to our trolleys. Also here we have a little video to show you this. So moving now from the sliding table with the gripper, pick them up and go over to the magazines to fill it. In the middle section you can see the cylinders for remove bad parts. In this video we don't have a stop there because all parts were detected as good parts. So this brings us to the next slide. Now we go to the next station. We have the assembly of these parts together, the drum sleeve, the drum, and these 6 lancets. Here also we give you a quick insight how this works. So on the next video we see how we bring these parts out of the magazine into these linear feeders. Just can push them out and prepare them to bring them into these drums. On the next video, we now have the fill of the drums. Here you can see the needles in a row, the lancets prepared. We have a rotating revolver system to pick up 6 needles and push them into the drum. Okay, so that's it from the production side. We have then some challenges in these processes shown here. First thing is magnetism. So when the needles are made, they will magnetize and can stick together like we see in the picture on the right. This always will be a little bit a problem, but we can avoid this by demagnetism and test them before we fill the magazines into our station. What always happens sometimes is the orientation of the needle in the middle. You can see it small on the marked position. We have there a little bit a brighter dot from the light. This is when the needle is wrong orientated and we don't have the sharp end in front. But this also will be checked when bringing the magazines to the station, and at least we have a possibility with the camera check to avoid that such a needle is going into our process. And for sure, what's always really important is the positioning. It really needs to be exact and placed right from the ketchup, from the magazine till bringing them into our mold, at least to avoid failure part for our patients, but also that we don't have mold damage in this section with the 64 cavities in a mold. So thank you very much, Jay. This was the first case study. Let's move on.
All right. Thank you very much, Patrick. So case study number 2 is a product we call the Squeezer. This is also for diabetes care. This is a wearable punch pap insulin delivery system. So we have a high precision shaft here that's threaded, and we're overmolding onto the tip of that shaft. And this plunger type device actually rides behind a cylinder here with the 2 O-rings, and it drives a metered dose of insulin into the patient. So I'm going to let Patrick discuss this a little more in detail, how we manufacture this.
Thank you, Jay. So here we have a little bit of different process to the one we saw in this case study. Here we have a screw with stainless steel, and we have a hard PBT with 0.8 gram. The part is slightly longer than the lancet we saw. And here we use an 80-ton machine to produce these in 8 cavities in a mold. It's also in a clean room environment, ISO 8, and we can produce to 8 million parts per year of this squeezer. Here we don't have a magazine filled up with the parts. They will be delivered directly in trays with 260 screws each tray and 26 stacked. So we bring the trays into our tray service system, unstack them, and prepare the parts for pickup. And if ready, molded, we put the squeezer back into these trays and fill them up again. So, give you an overview with the layout on the next slide. We start on the bottom left with the feed of the tray into the service system. We go then to the robot with a 6-axis to pick up the 8 screws for pre-positioning, go then into a fine positioning. The parts are then moved by another gripper system into the mold, catch the final part molded, bring them to the transfer system, and again the 6-axis pick them up and put it back into the tray. So let's go a little bit deeper also in this layout. On the next slide, we now have the pickup. On the photo on the left, you see first the pre-positioning of the screw. The problem is if the head is not molded on the part, they are slightly smaller and have much more tolerance to move into the tray. So this is why we need to have a pre-positioning. We use gravity for this and also use the station if a part is wrong orientated to detect this. After this pre-positioning, we go to another station where we can align each part really precisely with the fine positioning of the screw and prepare it for the pickup with the insert gripper. On the next page, we now have this part of the mold. You can see on the left side the sliders of the mold. So we have 4 parts in a row per slider. Here the sliders are open. In the middle picture, you see how the parts are clamped inside the sliders to just inject the head of the screw. And on the right side, you see the point of view from looking from top onto the mold, where the gripper needs to move in, catch the final finished molded parts, and bring in the next new screws for injection molding process. So also here we have prepared a little video to give you a little bit more information and show you how this process works. Here you see the 6-axis picking up the parts, pre-positioning, moving really quick, and going to this fine positioning station to prepare for pickup for the gripper. Here the gripper system, you see we have really long pliers to pick up all the parts, bring them into the mold. So remove the finished parts, bring in the new screws and go to the transition station. Parts there will be picked up from the 6-axis again and move back, fill up the trays. Let's see another cycle. Pre-positioning, fine positioning on his station. Pick them up with the gripper and move over to the mold. So when a tray is filled, they will be stacked up again and move out of the tray service system. Let's show us the next video, please, Jay. So here also we check that we have all parts correctly on the gripper before moving to the mold. Catch the part out of the mold, bring in the new screw, and move with the squeezer to the transition station. We also have on top of the mold a centering station where we contact with the gripper that we have the parts aligned correctly and place them into the sliders of the mold. And the next section is a little bit more zoomed that we can see it. Okay, now the challenges we had with these parts. On the left side we see the orientation. Also here we have the problem if the part is wrong orientated in the tray, this will give us a damage, and therefore also we have a check in the first section with the pre-positioning of these parts. What always is really important here is to have them precise aligned for the placement into the mold sliders. So pre-positioning and positioning is a really must here, and we also have the possibility to adjust them in really small millimeter amount. On the right side, here also was really tricky to bring the parts into the mold to catch them correctly and only have the part molded on the head and top. So these are our two case studies, which gives you a little bit of overview of possibilities we can do for you. So Jay, let's summarize it.
All right, thank you very much, Patrick. So in summary, some of the key takeaways in high volume production of needles and cannulas, reliable bonding is critical. It directly influences patient safety and clinical outcomes. Traditional adhesive methods can fall short in terms of consistency and long-term performance under medical grade demands. Insert and open molding techniques offer a supportive alternative, providing mechanically robust, repeatable bonds that reduce failure risk. These methods eliminate many of the challenges associated with adhesives, including curing, variability, and potential chemical incompatibilities as well. With the increasing demand for scalable and cost-effective manufacturing, automation plays a pivotal role. Insert molding is particularly well suited for medium to high volumes production runs, offering enhanced precision, reduced labor costs, and minimizing process variation as well. The other point is as medical devices trend towards miniaturization, insert molding and micro insert molding in particular become increasingly essential. These technologies support innovation in nanomedicine, minimally invasive surgery, surgical robotics, targeted drug delivery and wearables, real-time patient monitoring. It enables manufacturers to meet stringent size and performance requirements for the next generation med devices. So I guess in conclusion, reliable bonding achieved through advanced manufacturing techniques such as insert and micro-insert molding is crucial for enhancing patient safety and driving effectiveness and innovation in the medtech sector. So with that, I think the next step is Q&A. Take it away, Francis.
Thank you very much, Jay. Thanks, Patrick. We do have a few questions coming in, so I'll do my best to phrase them as well as I can. So excuse me if I get some of this wrong. But first of all, Patrick, you mentioned accuracy, cameras, and different things to prevent, I guess, quality issues, but how do you guarantee accurate positioning of the metal cannula inside the molded plastic during the insert molding is a question that we received.
Yeah, so it's really needed to have their really adjustable and fine aligned. The pre-positioning where we start picking up the parts until release them in the mold, that they're always in the correct position. This was a little bit tricky. So what really helps there is also when we start in the design phase, by designing the parts and also have the process in mind, how to take them, how to place them, how to overgive them from station to station. This really helps, but at least we need to have some screws for a fine adjustment for the whole process.
Okay, thank you. And along the same lines, and I know you mentioned challenges with one of your slides and showed some images there, but one question is about what are the typical failure points with insert molding for needles, and how do you avoid those? What steps do you put in place to avoid typical failure points?
Yeah, so more or less it's the one we've shown here. So the wrong orientation of a needle or of a screw is always a point we need to consider. This always happens during the process when getting the parts. So these need to be checked, and therefore we installed several camera systems to avoid these, detect these in the early stage before we go into the process. And needles sometimes with the magnetism, what we showed you, and at least the fine positioning is much important here.
Okay. And I'm not sure Jay Patrick will take this one, but we just had a general question about what you should consider during the design phase that may be different for overmolding or cannula components to get good results. Is it a different design phase? Can you share some information on that?
Yes, so for the whole process, it helps really a lot if we're in the early stage by designing the part in the boat to help looking through the process, that we also have possibility to change maybe a system, or how can we grip them, will we bring it and hold it in the mold for overmolding. So this is also important and maybe helps us improve the part and the final result, and the fine positioning maybe make it a little bit easier for the whole process.
Okay, and then moving on from sort of the design phase, we had a question on validation steps in regulated markets. So can you walk us through, is it different with overmolded needles or the high volume production? Can you talk a bit about what the validation steps are in regulated markets?
Yeah, so the validation steps are similar to an injection molding process in the medical. So we have these phases, the DQ, IQ, OQ, PQ. So starting with the design qualification, which also is a little bit for the concept and the construction of the automation process. We have the installation qualification to check that everything works as needed. Operational qualification then inside our plant, and at least the process qualification with our final operators working in the shifts to avoid as much possibility failure as possible.
Okay, so I assume it's based on that similar. I assume so. Take care. But it's similar to the validation of a standard plastic injection molded part.
Yes, it's really similar and going always through these steps.
Okay, thank you. And then we have one final question. If you do have any more, you can pop them in the box. But the final question, and maybe Jay, I'll put you on the spot for this one,
Okay.
as you've been let off there by Patrick. So you mentioned that in the question is, I guess you mentioned in the presentation a couple of times about being more cost effective. And of course, everybody likes to hear that. But you also said, cost effective in high volumes. So can you shed a bit more light on, I guess what we mean by high volumes, what the limitations would be there? So, one of the questions is, are there situations where gluing might still make more sense in lower volumes, or is it purely high volume was the question? If that
Yep. Okay.
makes sense.
So with higher volumes, I think it is a cost-effective solution. I would caution on products that have short life cycles, though. You may not be able to, I guess, it's hard to justify capital equipment with short-term products, right? If it's a long single running product for years on end, I think it's easy to justify the capital equipment costs. The other issue is with high volume, if you have a product that has multiple SKUs, different sizes, it's easy to change stacks in a mold to accommodate this, a high cavitation tool, but it's more difficult on the back end, on the automation end, changing out the cups, receivers, fixtures, and stuff like that. And then, of course, low volume molding, it's very difficult to justify, or low volume production, I should say, it's very difficult to justify capital equipment investments. So I don't know if I hope that answers some of it. I think it does to some extent, but.
Well, if not, I'm sure you guys will be available to follow up, and they can reach out to you directly, or yeah. So I hope it answered your question, and thanks very much for submitting that. So with that said, we are finished here today with this topic. I'd like to take the opportunity, obviously, to thank Jay and Patrick for taking the time and preparing a nice presentation for us. Thank you very much. And I'd also like to thank, it's great to see so many people online from around the world. Actually, somebody, you may have heard that noise. That is somebody asking a quick question, which I think we probably have time to throw it in. And the question is, are you purchasing from third party or producing the needles and cannulas? Sorry, I looked at my bigger screen, and producing the needles and cannulas internally?
Patrick, can you answer that one?
So are we purchasing from a third party, or are we producing the needles and cannulas internally?
My assumption is, I'm sorry, go ahead, Patrick.
Yeah, our core business is, of course, the injection molding of these parts. So we just buy them from a third party for cannulas and needles, and also need their precise parts to go through our process steps. But we don't produce them by ourselves.
Okay, so I hope that answered that last minute question that was in there. And with that said, I'd like to thank everybody for joining us. We have a great group of people on here from around the world, which is nice. So wherever you are in the world, whether it's your afternoon, I wish you a good afternoon and evening. For us, Jay, in the US, and those online in the US, a good continuation of the day. Thanks for joining us, and we hope you enjoyed that. We hope you learned something, and if you have any questions, you can always reach out to us at Weidmann Medical Technology. So again, thanks very much. We hope to see you again on the next webinar. Enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.